Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk a little bit about Hedera Hashgraph, something that was interesting that came up during the ecosystem week that they had recently. And then we'll also talk about a couple of our models that we have here in the channel to analyze its price action a little bit further. So to go ahead and get us kicked off, I want to talk about something that came up with HBAR that I thought was kind of interesting, something that was highlighted at the ecosystem week. So I'm going to go ahead and just flip over here. So if you're not familiar with this, Hedera had this ecosystem week where there were multiple different videos throughout that week. They put out kind of highlighting different aspects of Hedera and the ecosystem, things that people are building, etc. One of the things that really caught my eye during this was something that came up when Dr. Lehman Baird, if you're not familiar, he's kind of the mastermind behind Hashgraph and the whole thing. So one of the things that he talked about was this idea of decentralized recovery of private keys, basically, of wallets. And this is something that, obviously has been talked about in crypto, but it hasn't really been talked about a lot about recently, or at least in no high profile way. There are very few kind of big leading protocols that are really talking about this. So the fact that he brought this up as it being a very important thing going forward for Hedera, something that we're going to really try to work towards and to integrate with Hedera, caught my attention. So I'm not going to play the whole video or talk in total depth about the technical specifics of how they're thinking about doing this. But the basic idea here is to create a system that would allow people to recover their private keys if they somehow lost them. And the argument that Dr. Baird gave, which I thought in a lot of ways made a lot of sense, was basically that in every other financial endeavor that people go into, if it's a bank account, if it's credit cards, etc., then there's always a fail-safe, right? There's always some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card. There's some way that you can recover your account or your funds if you screw up and lose something or like lose a password, etc. But currently in crypto, nothing like that exists. If you lose your private keys, you're screwed. There's nothing you can really do about it. And so essentially his argument was that for crypto to gain widespread adoption, we need to create some kind of system within crypto to allow people to recover their wallets if they were to lose them. Because, of course, that's just going to happen. People lose things all the time. Even crypto native people doing this for a long time, will lose their private keys and lose access to their funds. So we need to have, for mass adoption to happen, basically the argument is that we need some system like this. And so I thought this was a really interesting thing for Hedera to make such a big part of their roadmap going forward, at least in the near term. And also one of the things that was talked about here was not just making this for Hedera, but to create some kind of standardized kind of approach or system that could be used with other blockchains as well, to kind of make this recovery be something that is more becomes more widely done in crypto to then again enhance wider spread adoption. No, I think this is interesting because I do agree that long term, I think these kind of systems are absolutely necessary for crypto. But then I think it's also one of those things where we have to ask, with Hedera, is that really the best thing to be focusing on right now, or should they be focusing on other things instead, right? Should they be focusing on increasing scalability? Should they be working on other elements, trying to add in new features, or even try to do additional things to, make Hedera more unique than it already is from other crypto projects? Those are obviously debates that can be had. But, in a bear market, there is no shortage of time to some degree. I personally believe we're going to be in this bear market for quite a bit longer. So, it's probably not the worst thing in the world to create something that would actually be unique to Hedera, right? If they were the ones to kind of implement this kind of, recovery ability, it would be certainly the only large crypto project to have something like that natively built into it. So that's something that I think is interesting. I think it's an open question if that's the best use of the time immediately for Hedera, but certainly it is something that would set it apart from other projects. And I just wanted to bring this up because it really struck me as being something that was a little bit different. Something I think will be interesting to watch going forward. Now, I don't know how bullish it is for price action. In fact, I suspect it won't be in any short-term capacity, right? I don't think it's going to break Hedera out of the bear market. So anyone who is hoping that the dev team is going to pull out some miracle to kind of launch HBAR into the stratosphere while everything is crashing, it's just not going to happen. But that probably wasn't going to happen anyway to some degree. So it's obviously no silver bullet, but it is just something I think will be interesting to keep an eye on, something that sets HBAR apart from a lot of other leading crypto projects. Not that the other ones wouldn't follow suit, but certainly I haven't heard as much eagerness or enthusiasm about it as I did here with Hedera in that ecosystem week. Now, kind of coming off of this then, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Hedera's price to kind of wrap us up here. That was something that was kind of interesting, more on a fundamental perspective. But now let's talk more just about what's going on with price and what some of our models are making of HBAR's price action. So what I wanted to talk about first here is the market direction classifier, or MDC. So if you're not familiar with this model, it's basically one that tries to identify as early as possible if an asset is in an uptrend or in a downtrend. And what you can see, just kind of looking at this across time, is that when you flip red, it's generally a bad thing. When you flip green, it's generally a good thing. And you can see here how if one had been paying attention to the MDC throughout this whole time, one could have saved oneself from a lot of pain with HBAR as we went all the way basically, just a bit below the all-time high, kind of up at these levels up here above 30 cents, crashing all the way down to current levels. And so, we had a slight attempt at a new uptrend back over here, but more or less we've just been in the red, just kind of bear market behavior. And this yellow line here is the critical level, that's the level you want to be above. That currently sits at about 5 cents, 5.3 cents right now. And we're not really anywhere close to that right now. We'd have to see a pretty decent rally to get back above that. And then you'd hope to more decisively break above to be convinced that we're in any kind of new uptrend. I'm just not seeing that yet. So as I was talking about before, I think this bear market probably has more time left in it. I don't think that HBAR is going to decouple itself from the rest of the crypto space. So I think that we're just likely to, at best, chop sideways from here, if not potentially have to bleed even further, which I know is not something that anyone likes to hear. HBAR's already bled enough. We'd hope that the pain is done, but there's no guarantee of that at all. In a crypto bear market, things that can go down will go down is often the way it happens. And, you can have an asset that's already bled out, over 90% of the downside, drop another 50% from that point relatively easily. So that's kind of the bearish outlook, but I just think it's the realistic outlook from that perspective. And we can also see a similar story if we look over here at the momentum bias indicator, MBI. So this measures momentum in an asset. So is the momentum prevailing to the upside or prevailing to the downside? So when it's above zero, that's bullish. That means that the momentum is prevailing to the upside, and that generally goes along with these uptrends. Whereas red, like we're seeing in this bear market, it's bearish, pulling price down with it. And what we're seeing from HBAR right now is absolutely textbook bear market behavior on the MBI. If you see me talk about this indicator with other assets, you'll recognize this already. But it's this behavior where you get into the red, oftentimes soon after some kind of big run or some kind of high, flip into the red, and then you will spend a lot of time down there. You'll try to reestablish positive momentum. You'll poke your head above zero. You'll get rejected. You'll go down to the next leg down. You'll go back up. You'll poke your head up above zero. Go get rejected, come back down, either sideways or set the next leg down, etc. And this type of behavior will continue until the bear market is likely to be reversing into some kind of accumulation zone that might lead into some kind of bull market, right? Basically until we can start spending more time in the green, or what we're really looking for, in my opinion, is this kind of oscillation around zero like we see back over here, kind of spending a lot of time around zero or kind of oscillating up and down around it. That kind of behavior tends to portend or come before reversals back to the upside, right? It's oftentimes these accumulation zones that'll show this kind of behavior, which are generally transitions out of bullish times like this bearish times like this into more bullish points. And so with the MDC, there's kind of three phases you want to look for. There's the mania phase, where the momentum is just biased like crazy to the upside and price is just ripping up. There's the bear market that tends to follow right after, where it's just biased to the downside. And then there's that transition period, that kind of oscillation around zero that tends to form in that period between the bear and the bull, when you're kind of just chopping sideways, in that big accumulation zone before some positive thing can happen. And so we're not seeing that yet with HBAR, right? We're just not seeing that kind of behavior yet. It is, closer to zero now than it was back here, but we're not doing anything to try to establish a new positive momentum bias. So really for me, what I'm going to be looking for with HBAR is, can we flip the MDC positive? Can we start showing that behavior on the MBI? And frankly, can we just see the rest of the crypto space start to get more bullish, right? I don't think that HBAR is going to do anything too spectacular until the rest of the market gets more bullish. So right now we're really just kind of in a holding pattern. Really we've been bleeding, which is not ideal. But in terms of, whether or not we think a new bull market is imminent by any means, there's absolutely no sign of that yet. And so, you're going to see people who are always coming out trying to get, attention and get engagement by saying, oh, HBAR is going to $1 in 2 months. You better load up now. My personal opinion, obviously not financial advice. You should do whatever you want. But I think those people are just, leading people astray. I don't think that's the way to approach these markets. I think we should really be data driven. We should be focused on what the data are telling us. And we should not just be thinking that, by some magic, HBAR is going to go parabolic while the rest of the market is tanking. Now, again, not financial advice. These are just the way I interpret the data. You should interpret them the way that you will. You should make your own decisions about how to best navigate these markets. That's just what I'm seeing from the data right now. So kind of overall, my takeaway with HBAR is I think they're doing some interesting things, and they're focusing on some things that aren't really the main focus of a lot of other projects. Well, time will tell if that pays off, if that actually is a good use of time with things like decentralized recovery. But certainly, if HBAR is able to weather the bear market, come out the other side into, the next bull market when that comes, and I do believe there will be another one in crypto at some point, as hard as that is to believe right now. I think eventually, more likely than not, we're going to get one. Then, if HBAR can survive that long, then maybe that's something that can set it apart. And, if it really is that kind of ease of use thing where people want that extra security, maybe that brings a bit more attention to HBAR, especially if they can build out some of the rest of their ecosystem with NFTs, which they're making some progress on, and DeFi and some of those things. So those are some things to think about with HBAR and with HBAR's price action. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, better indicators, and more over there.